Hi, here's how I made this interactive music system. I used Fmod as the actual controller, but I'm just going to speak about how I broke the track up into layers and reconstructed it in a semi-modular way. So, firstly, this music is for a character called Husk from a game jam I'm currently working on. He's about 24, he's a wizard, very, very addicted to studying, and also relies on magical potions to function. So, I wanted the instrumentation to reflect this and kind of also suit my personal style. It is string quintet, men's choir, pads, tam-tam, low drums, taikos, French horn, bass clarinet, alto flute, and oboe. The chamber nature of this ensemble did cause me quite a lot of problems, because chamber music is really dependent on the interactions between the parts, and if you separate them out so that it's modular, suddenly things don't necessarily work in the way that they actually should be. So when I was writing, I had to be really specific about how I was going to eventually break things down so that all of the stems and all of the layers and all of the horizontal slices would all kind of make sense, even though I'm writing for chamber music. More on that basically throughout the rest of the video. Cool, let's get started. This section of the game begins once the player gets close enough to the boss arena. The track begins with the drone made up of synth pads, textural moving men's choir, and double bass oscillating around a figure. Over the top of this I wrote a long violin melody, which I then broke up into fragments and put into a series of randomizers. There are rests in between them, and all of this hopefully helps to reduce any sense of repetition. Something I considered here was making sure the overall phrase melody, while having good variation in texture and register and dynamics, was also not reliant on a particular progress or direction so that it would be more easily rearrangeable. This all transitions into a scene where you are walking down a corridor into the main boss arena. I wrote a simple tremolo string part, supported by pads, men's choir, and taiko. This was then divided up with the pads, choir, and violin being one static, and everything else fading in further along the corridor you are. To make this feel more structured and less like a straight line, I had it so the double bass and taiko enter as the first instruments to fade in, followed by the rest of the quintet. The second you reach the boss arena, a transition phrase plays, leading into the first combat loop. This one is relatively short, around only 20 seconds, but I did a lot in the integration side to make it feel more developed. This is all reactive to the percentage of health dealt against the boss's overall health. It starts with one run through of the section with an impact in the strings and French horn at the start, with the rest of the loop being just pads, choir, and taiko. On completion of this, tam-tam enters and we start looping. Up to 5% of the boss's health being done, it stays just taiko, pads, choir, and tam-tam, but at 5 to 10% we swap out the taiko for low drum ensemble. Then at 10 to 15%, the taiko re-enters and we hear both drum stems at the same time. From 15 to 20%, the winds appear. So, instead of just having a normal intensity scaling, they should specifically create a sense of linear progression, but at a rate that the player controls. When 20% of the boss's health is gone, we play another transition, and then we enter the second combat loop. The transition sounds like this. The second combat loop is divided into oboe and alto flute, bass clarinet and French horn, violin 1 alternative melody, small string ensemble, string doubles, and men's choir plus drums. The men's choir and drums are statics, with the first thing you hear other than them being the violin 1 alternative melody. Once 30% of the boss's health is dealt, violin 1 alternative line gets swapped out for a stem with the smallest amount of the chamber strings present that makes sense and contains all the lines. I had to plan this carefully so that there would be a small ensemble within the bigger quintet, always, that contained everything I needed, and then a couple of the string players are also at any time adding some extra thickness. So it's like a trio, but the trio gets swapped around who is in that core trio. From 40% onwards of the boss's health being dealt, the string doubles fade in. These sound like this on their own. Together, those two groups of string players sound like this. The bass clarinet and French horn fade in from 60 to 90% and just add another layer of tension, playing doubles of already existing accompaniment lines. Here they are solo. And here they are with the rest of the ensemble. The last component of this loop is the oboe and alto flute, which sound like this. They fade in as player health reduces to add even more tension and texture. This is subtle. I didn't want a big flashing "you are about to die" sound, but I also wanted some sort of reactivity. Once the boss has lost all of his health, a transition plays, either at the end of the loop or halfway through it, and that will eventually lead to the next cue. For now though, it just leads to silence. Currently, you might have noticed there is no death state. That is fully because I'm still workshopping exactly what the music should do when you die. There are a few options I like, and I will present them to you soon to see which you prefer. The whole track is up on my channel, so you can listen to an approximation of what it will sound like in game in full, but here's a quick snippet. Okay, for anyone working on my team, I hope that was helpful and that you understand how we're going to be doing the music now. And for anyone not working on my team, thank you for watching the video, and I hope that you check out our game when it comes out. See you later, okay?